Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take on this Monday morning. A wild ride last week again. And I think of the weeks, though, that had to be one of the wildest weeks of 2022, which entire year so far has been up and down and all around. And give you a small idea. How about looking at volatility index just for a moment? We always check on that anyway. But when you start off the week with Monday having about a 35 volatility index, that was the reading that we had on Monday. Go to Wednesday, you're all the way down to 25. That's significant. That's a big move. So that alone is huge. This is the velocity of that move. Oh, and then you bounce right back and you split it right in the middle on Friday. Close out the week right around 30. As a matter of fact, a brutal week. We all know that. The week was all over the place, but it was near flat for the Dow by the end of the week. We did finish down on Friday, down about 100 points, but those ups and downs got a lot of people with some motion sickness there. There's no doubt about that. Saturday, when I look over at the NASDAQ, sort of the same story, although that was taking a little bit more on the chin. It was down about 250 points on the week, which is a significant number. And then you add in what was part of that slide, which was finishing down today about 175 points on Friday. So you get an idea that the NASDAQ definitely moving a little bit more harsh to the downside than we were seeing out of the Dow itself. Matter of fact, the S&P really not much, down 12 points for the week. That's not all that significant, but it was what happened within that week that really does stand out, which is pretty amazing. 45.6 million contracts trading on Friday gives you an idea. We're starting to kick into May, and after a very slow volume month for April, May is kicking off and starting to show us that there's a lot more activity coming back into the markets from that perspective. Speaking of which, Bitcoin, that's been getting absolutely hammered. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second because it's even getting hammered more so from Friday all the way down. We look at it today, not looking so good. Nat gas up there towards $8, and everybody's starting to feel like, hey, it's not just a crude oil issue. Crude, which was right around 109, 110, but you got to look at some of the rest of these as well. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about energy and inflation and all of the different storylines that go into this whole thing. 10-year, right above 3.1. That's been something that's been on a steady pace to the upside and seems to be holding pretty comfortably right now after the big week in the Fed and jobs reports and all the different news stories that were going on last week. So as we finished up Friday, we had energy looking great. Energy was up 3%. Well, great if you're long, but names like Apache, APA, you got Devon, you've got EOG, you got Conoco, you've got Chevron, you've got all of those, Occidental, all having a very good positive day. What wasn't really working so well, materials getting hit pretty good. You got names like Freeport Mac, you got U.S. Steel, Vale, those names definitely pushing to the downside. That was down about not quite 1.5%, 1.3%. I look over at the consumer discretionary numbers with Amazon and Tesla and Nike. That didn't really look all so hot. Technology, it didn't get slammed, but down about 0.8%. So names like Apple, Amazon, Tesla, Facebook, Netflix, not all of them were getting slammed, but all of those were either flat or going into negative territory. And then, of course, the financials taking a little bit of a shot too. Not so terrible. Goldman Sachs was about flat. Some of the other names were definitely getting hit to the downside. Names like Schwab really getting hit pretty hard on Friday. So, I wanted to mention something to you. This Wednesday, so it's very much coming up very quickly, John and AJ Monty are going to be getting together. It's going to be a free webinar. It should be great. We're looking forward to that. They're going to be talking about technical analysis, and there is nobody better than AJ. He does an absolutely phenomenal job. He and John are going to sit down and dissect the markets and how they analyze and look for opportunities within the markets. And obviously with AJ's experience, many, many years, this is a guy who really understands his side of things. Add in what John's got when it comes to all the market experience that he's got. It's going to be an unbelievable webinar. All you've got to do is click on the link. That should be pretty easy to sign up. And if you're not able to attend, as you know, if you click on that link, we can send you that as well at a different date. So just keep that in mind. That's Wednesday right at the market close. As we get into today and we get through the weekend, the Dow's down pretty significantly. Looking at it in the pre-market, it was down over 500 points. But as we got a little closer to the start of the day, down about 400 points, down about 270 points on the NASDAQ. It's pretty much stayed somewhere within that range. I look at the Dow, it's been somewhere between down about 400, got a little bit of a strange bubble once in there, but call it somewhere between 400 and 450 to the downside. NASDAQ similar. You're looking down 225 down to about 300 to the downside as well for the NASDAQ. So getting a little bit of a pressure on it. We talked about volatility, right? Well, volatility today in a fairly tight range, 32 to 34. We're pressing on that 34 number pretty decent. It's up there in the 33s, but pressing on 34. And just always remember this. I hear it on television all the time, financial television, doesn't matter where you go. I think the understanding of what the volatility index is actually telling us is the key. And what you have to understand is it's talking about the S&P 500 and what kind of moves to expect each and every day. So when we get above about a 32, and I just was saying a little over 33, close to 34, you're looking at a 2% move in the S&P 500 every single day. And that's basically where we are right now. And so just keep an eye on that. If you keep that in mind for the volatility index, the VIX, that'll keep things moving along and you'll understand this much better. Energy. It was down nearly 3% early. Yeah, crude was right around 107. We were talking about 109, 110 Friday, down around 107 today. But when I look over at the energy space, wow, down almost 4.5% now just before I came on. That definitely is a big swing and pull to the downside. Consumer discretionary actually got a little bit better than it was. It was down over 2.5%, down about 2%, but technology started to slide just a little bit. Materials kind of hanging in there. But I look at financials too. Those were starting to slide. They were down just about 1.25% or so, down about 1.75% just before I came on here. So every single name in the Dow early on was down, was in the red. That did change. Some of the very worst that were getting hit, Boeing, Chevron, United Health, Caterpillar, Home Depot, Apple, that was early on. And then we started to see a little bit of a flip. We started to see a few names go into the green. Walmart and Home Depot flipped a little bit. Amgen, Triple M, all started to move and get into that green space as well. So we are seeing some shifts. We're seeing some movement. There's no doubt about it. But energy definitely sliding from where it was on the opening to where we are now. Now that can change, obviously, in a heartbeat. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. What also has been getting slammed, we talked about it a second ago, Bitcoin. Bitcoin was 68,000 at its peak. It now has cut that in half, down more than 50%. And that's something that a lot of people are keeping a very close eye on because of Bitcoin. And a lot of people thought that might be an alternative or maybe a safe place. Well, it's been going down just like we watched the NASDAQ go down significantly more than the Dow. It seems like Bitcoin certainly getting hammered. When that turns around, that's going to be interesting. But it certainly has been under pressure. So a lot of the movers that we're seeing early, not a whole lot on the positive side, especially when you see a Dow down over 400 points. Charter Communications, again, shout out to Sarat Satie. Last week he was talking about that specific name and how bullish he and his firm were on that one. Kudos to him. That one's still doing very, very well. Netflix with a little bit of a turn into positive territory. I'm looking at a couple other things like Etsy, which is bouncing back. Under Armour bouncing back. Clorox has had a pretty decent run to the upside. And Moderna seems to be on the list every day, whether it's on the upside or the downside. Today it's on that upside. But a lot of those semiconductors under pressure or names within that industry, names like Lam Research, for instance, getting hammered. Tesla, by the way, taken on the chin a little bit as well. NVIDIA getting hit pretty hard. Also looking at some of the beta energy names with a little bit of a push. And you can look at some of those cruise ships as well, getting a push to the downside. Names like Carnival and the Norwegian. Lucid getting a little bit of a push. The Chinese names, JD, PDD, Baidu, they're getting a little bit of a push. Those multiple names that we talk about all the time. It's funny, now everybody seems to be focusing on these triple and quadruple PEs and starting to scratch their head going, wow, these things are really high. Well, they were high when they were high. And their multiples were ridiculous. They're actually getting a little bit more interesting as they've gotten pushed to the downside, but they got to make money. And that's why they're still under pressure. Obviously, names like Okta and CrowdStrike and those kinds of names. So got two unusuals for you, and we'll get out of here. Start off the day. I'm not on the halftime, but I was asked to be on the 5 o'clock show later on today. So hopefully we'll get a chance to see you then. Before I get there, Marathon Oil, that's number one. Yes, energy under pressure. Yes, those are the times that it gets a little bit more interesting. It's so odd to me that when oil was in 38s, everybody hated it. Oil gets over 100, everybody loves it. Well, that's really not the way. That's not the game that you want to be playing. But you also do want to trade within that. And that's what we're seeing in Marathon. Marathon's had this incredible run to the upside. Stock is over 26, trading closer to towards 26 and a half today. 4,000 of the June 3rd expiring 28 calls. So not too terribly far away from where it is right now. Those are going for $1 to $1.30, and they're hedging those. They're buying those, selling the 30 strike calls as well. Rivian is the next one. Now, Rivian, this is a name that has an absolutely slaughtered. And it seems as if too many held for too long. Great opportunity off of the IPO. Stock had that beautiful bounce. They priced it right. Stock had a great run to the upside. And then it's been tumbling ever since. Got to have that discipline. Got to exit. But what we're seeing now is even more pressure to the downside. Stock was trading around 25.50. We had a buyer of 6,500 of Friday's expiring 24 puts. Those were somewhere close to $2, $1.88. But they're also selling the 20 puts, so turning that into a little bit of a spread. That one was pretty interesting as well. You wonder where that thing finally stops, but it's certainly getting hammered, and it's been getting hammered. News over the weekend definitely putting a lot more pressure on the stock as well. So definitely want to understand what the storyline is there and what it looks like from an option perspective at this point in time. Again, a lot of these names are names that I've said many, many times. I don't touch them for stocks, but I will trade the options. There's no doubt about that. Folks, have a great day of trading today. It's going to be a bumpy ride. We all know that, but there's always opportunities out there. We'll be looking for those as well. Have a great day of trading.